Hi, everybody. Very good afternoon or good morning, wherever you are. Thanks for joining us for this Tinx IT Partner Implementation Training for Q2. My name is Nicholas. With me on the call is Casper at Tinx IT, who will be hosting the session. If you have any questions during the training, please enter them in the questions tab. I will keep track of them, and we will, as far as possible, treat them during the call itself. So please don't hesitate and put them in the questions tab. Afterwards, you'll receive a recording of the session automatically, so you can rewatch. And please make sure to share your feedback on the very brief survey we have for you at the end. Just a reminder for the other upcoming training sessions we've scheduled for today. So the Tinx IT Magento Connector is up next. At 2:15 Amsterdam time, we have a session on Ship-it 365, our shipping integration that works with a number of shipping providers. And then to close off the day, we have a session on Approve-it 365 at 3:30 this afternoon, our solution to send, sign, and store quotes into BC through a DocuSign integration. If you want to sign up or forward these sessions to colleagues that might be interested in joining, you have the URL down at the bottom. It's idyn.nl/news, and you'll be directed to the registration page. Now, with that being said, I'm going to pass the presenter rights over to Casper at Tinx IT, when you're ready, Casper, you can take it away.
All right, I'm ready. Let me see if I can share my screen. All right, can you see my screen?
Yeah.
All right, perfect. Well, thank you for having me. I'm Casper, one of the consultants of Tinx IT. Today, I'm going to give you a demo of our Magento extension. Just for your information, we don't do only Magento, but we also have other platforms, as you can see in this slide. All right. So the agenda for today is I'm going to tell you a bit about PIM management possibilities in our connector. I'm going to show you how you can set up the connector via the mapping. Sorry for that. I'm going to show you the B2B pricing and discounts extensions, and I'm going to show you the customer portal functionality. With that said, our connector is downloadable in BC App Source. So if you have downloaded our extension and you switch the role to Tinx e-commandment, you will see the same screen as I'm seeing right now. The first part you have to do when setting up a connection, you have to go to integration, sales channel list, and you can just add a new sales channel in here by clicking on new webshop connectors, and then you will download our mapping and the sales channel. You can have multiple sales channels. In this case, I present you a demo of environment company. We have only applied one sales channel, but you can have multiple sales channels, for example, for the same, different Magento environments if you want to from the same BC company. That's important because, as you probably know, Magento has IDs for all their entities, for products, for customers, and stuff like that. So that's how we set that up. To give you a short demo of the setup, and then we start with the PIM management. This is just a short introduction how you do it. You will fill in the website and fill in the bearer token, and then you should have a connection. From there, you can apply order events. So for example, if you download an order, you can apply, for example, an invoice discount, or you can immediately post the order as an invoice shipment. all that kind of good stuff. And that's basically the setup of the connector in general. Then if we go to PIM management, feel free to interrupt me if you have some questions about some definition. For example, I'm going to use the terms like attribute sets. If you're not too familiar with Magento and all, the terminology, let me know, then we can answer that. But what you can do, we have our own tables, for example, to set up attribute set. As you know, attribute sets are quite important in Magento. You can assign attribute set to a product if you have configured it in here. And you can apply, or you can insert or define, certain attributes to this specific attribute set. If you assign the attribute set to a product, then you can see all this information and configure that. I will show you later how that works. But in here, you can basically set up attribute sets. All right, then we go to the attributes. In here, we have our own attributes possibilities, which are tailored for Magento. So we do support BC attributes if you don't want to use our functionality. So that's not a problem. But if you start from scratch, we suggest, or if you want to have a tailor-made for Magento, we suggest you use R tables, set up the attributes in R tables. And what you can do in here is basically define the code, of course, but also say that we have a multiple select attribute, which is not supported by BC, for example. So if you have multiple select attributes in Magento or want multiple select attributes, we have you covered. In here, if you go to attribute options, you can define the certain option that specific attribute has to have. So in this case, this client has filled in these kinds of attribute options for this attribute, and this will transfer to Magento. Regarding the attribute, regarding the Magento specific settings, that can be defined in here. For example, you can have the scope global or website. Well, if you're familiar with Magento, you will know that we have that they have all kind of settings like user layer navigation and that kind of stuff. So this is the place where you can configure that. We also have the option, if you do like to have the BC attributes, but also want to use our Magento tailored functionality, we also have an option to use, basically assign it to the BC attribute table, and then it will download all the options of your BC attribute options. So you can still use that, and in here, existing item value, we can parse it in the JSON, so you don't have to do anything. But yeah, that's more advanced stuff, but then you know that it is a possibility to combine the two tables. All right, so that's attributes. We also have web categories. In this way, you can set up your own tree per sales channel if you want to, also per store view. If you have, for example, different root categories for your websites in Magento, this is a way you can set up the tree in there. So basically, you can make the tree in here, and you can assign your product. Again, I will show you that later, to different categories. And the benefit of this in BC, as you probably know, you can only assign a product to one specific category, but via R tables, you can just assign it to multiple. You can even say, well, if I want to download all the, assign all the products to this specific category, you can select an item category in here, and then it will automatically assign all the products which are assigned with the item category to our web category, to the Magento web category. We also have an option besides that to use item filters. And basically what you can do is that you can use different settings, so different fields. Well, this is not a good example, but if you have some specific fields, you will say, for example, I don't know, search description is, I don't know, test 1, 2, 3, then it will automatically assign all these products which match the criteria to this specific category. So it's sort of the same way as web category, only for different fields. Yes, so that's it regarding web categories. Then I will show you a bit of how you can assign it for all your products, or for, in this case, the specific product. This is the default item card. We have added an e-commerce tab in here. And basically what you can do is, these are all the functionalities which are supported by our connector. So basically web category and that kind of stuff, but I will show you that later. The first thing we're going to discuss is web item extension. In here, you can define what kind of product, if it pops up, what kind of product settings regarding Magento it should have. As you probably know, the product type in Magento can be different. So in this way, you can assign a specific product type in here, for example, or a specific visibility. You can use a certain status, well, etc., etc. We have all kind of options in here, but most relevant are simple and catalog and search, for example, and if the status is enabled. Right. We also have the possibility to assign websites. So if I pop this up, if you have multiple websites, it will show you, in this case, I have it in here. You can assign, for example, if it should be assigned to, I don't know, in this case, it's the main website, or in their case, the favor site. So you can determine per product to which website it should be assigned. In here, we have the web category tree. So that's based on the tree I showed you earlier. You can assign it to different categories, and then it will transfer to Magento assigned to the specific categories. Again, you can switch sales channel if you have multiple websites or multiple Magento instances, and then it will show the tree for that, and then you can also assign it. This is the manual part, but as I showed you before, we also have the automatically assign functionality for categories. Images. We also have an image table. As you know, in BC, you can assign one image. In our table, that doesn't really matter. You can have as many images you want to. We support a direct file, so you can upload your file in here, or we support URLs. If you have, for example, a DAM or a server where you have the files stored, we can also grab that from that URL and send that to Magento. We also have, again, specific Magento options, like assign it to the base image, small image, thumbnail, and small image. So that's it regarding images. We have bundle item options if you want to set up bundles. We have the attributes I mentioned earlier. So in here, you can select an option if you want to and change it, and then it will transfer to Magento. They don't have a multiple select in here, but if it was a multiple select in this product, you can assign different ones. In here, you can see that we have a text. So you can write just text in here. And all the other types are also supported. So whatever, how you set it up, you can fill that in. We have an option to determine text. So in this case, let's make an example. If we have, for example, well, let's say we want to write something for the English store view, we can have a different item name, test, we can have a different URL key, meta titles and stuff like that, descriptions. We have a HTML editor, which is WYSIWYG, where you can, well, it's a simple WYSIWYG, but you can make text bold, underline it, stuff like that, images. If you don't want to use the Magento WYSIWYG, you can use this functionality. If you have a tailor-made environment or you need some specific mapping, we also added custom description is in here, so you can store longer text than, for example, 150 characters. We also have item by sales channel if you want to assign, they have only one sales channel, but if you have different sales channel, you can assign it to a different, the product to different sales channel. As I mentioned before, Magento requires IDs for their product. So if we send something to Magento, it gives us back an ID. So in order to support this, we can't store it in the item table. We have to have a separate table where we create 2 entries if we have two sales channels, and then we can store the specific IDs in there. But that's all automatically, so you don't have to worry about that. We have configurable components. This is meant for, usually meant for setting up configurable products. You can add, well, other items to this specific component. Sorry, to this specific, if this was a configurable, to this configurable. So that's how you can set that up. And again, this is just our suggestion. Based on the mapping we made, our default mapping, this will automatically work. But if you want to do it differently, for example, you want to make your configurables based on variants, BC variants, that's also supported. We also have mapping for that, but that's just a variant table. They don't have it, but if we have any variants, you can say, for example, if it's published, then we want to use that as a part of this configurable, because as you know, a configurable has multiple simple products underneath it, so that's why we also need to store the IDs of that particular product. Videos, as you know, you can have YouTube videos and Vimeo for Magento, so that can be stored in here. We support custom options, so you can add custom options in here if you want to. And we have item links. That's also one of our navigation items, where you can add cross-sell, upsell, related, and grouped items. And that works sort of the same like this configurable component. You have to select which products we should send to Magento related to that. But that's the table we, as a default, grab that from. So that's it regarding the setup and the PIM. I don't know if anybody has any questions about that. If not, then I will just continue with the other agenda topic, which is the mapping. All right, then we will continue with the mapping. All right, this is basically where we store the mapping, is basically where we determine which fields we are gonna grab. So the tables I showed you before, that's where it grabs all the data from and parse that into a JSON and send that to Magento. So that's how it communicates with Magento. So in here, we have multiple default dashboards. As you see, we got quite many, but basically we have a dashboard for to download customers from Magento in BC, to download orders into BC, sales documents. These are just the dashboard's name, so I will tell you a bit more about that, but these are just the defaults. We can send out attributes, as I showed you. We can send out prices. We can send out configurables, custom options. We can send out customers, inventory, multi-language, products, stuff like that. So this is basically all the dashboards we currently have. You can add, if you want to, you can add your also dashboards and create your own mapping. So that's all possible. But what we can do with the dashboard is basically we're going to determine in here, what are we doing? Should it run with the job queue or not? We have a job queue code units, which will transfer the data. We have an outbound job queue and an inbound job queue. For the inbound, you can set, for example, I want to run it every minute, then everything which is set on timer will automatically run. All the messages in this dashboard will then run every minute. And the same goes for outbound, but those two are different code units. As you can see, we can also assign a specific sales channel to that. So in this case, as you know, sales channel, the website is assigned to this, and the authentication data. We can add priorities if you want to run a dashboard before the other dashboards. And you can also determine if certain job queue categories should be assigned to this particular dashboard. All right, just to show you something in here. So this means for this customer, just for your information, only the on timer will run, and the rest will not do anything, but can be used in the future if you want to set that up. Yeah, so if we go into a dashboard, for example, the in customer, I think my BC froze. Let me just open it up again. In the meantime, I will show you if we can. All right, there we go. And there we go in here. All right, it works again, so that's good. Yeah, so what we have in here is we have messages. With these messages, we can assign certain web services. These are Magento web services. Again, if you want to set up your own web, well, not web service, but if you want to assign a certain web service which is not in our default mapping, you can. You just have to check Magento what kind of web services you are looking for. But in this case, we will, we use the orders endpoint, which is the default endpoint to retrieve orders from Magento. So what we do in here is we retrieve an order list. We don't have any filter in that. So that's the first thing we do because that has priority 10, and we use the REST method get. So in this case, yes, this is what we're looking for. In this case, we have some filters applied because this listens to a table. As you can see, we have %1 in here. That basically means that we have, I will quickly jump to the tables in here. So in this message, we have tables. But, sorry, on the card, I mean, what we do is based on the information we are downloading. Yep, we have an entity ID. So that will use the entity ID as the parameter in the URL. So just to make it more wholesome, what we do with this one is we are downloading the data for retrieving all the list orders in our buffer table, which is the Tinx sales order table. This is the table I have set up in here. That will fetch automatically all the orders based on how we set that up. Yeah, so what we have in here, we also have a filter in here. So basically it's determined on entity ID, and it says, well, every entity ID higher than 385, we are downloading and it updates automatically. So from now on, it checks with the inbound job queue, every minute, do we have a new order if you set it up to 1 minute? And if so, download it to our webshop order table. So what is our webshop order table? Our webshop order table is we call it a buffer table. And we use that buffer table to store information. And based on that information, we can filter. For example, some of our clients, don't want to convert webshop orders which are pending, if it has the status pending, which means that it's not paid yet. So, for example, they only want to convert it to a sales order if it has this status processing. So if I show you, for example, the fields in here, well, for this particular customer, it says, well, pending processing is fine, but based on other information, it should match these criteria before we create a sales order. So that is basically this table. We downloaded it to this table for sales orders, and then based on that data, we can determine based on filters if we're going to process it or not. The same is applied to webshop customers. So also based on that specific entity, we download all the customers in our buffer table. If it matches certain criteria, then we can transfer it if the client wants you to a BC customer. So what do we do? So these are the messages. Here is where you can set up the filters, and here's where you can set up which should be the parameter, with kind of field in the buffer table that should which we should use for that parameter. We also have a short history. We can see in here, based on this job queue, if it's processed or not. This means that we don't have any new orders. But in here, you can see, for example, that we successfully retrieve additional data for this particular message. And you can see in the response, if we download the response, yes, what kind of fields you can use if you want to store that in our buffer table, or you want in the sales order. So how does it work? So let's use the list for orders. Basically what we tell, if you take a look at that JSON again, we have the element name, and based on that root items, we can download all kind of information. So if we go one level deeper, we can see we have multiple fields in here. So as you can see, we have the webshop field entity ID, and we should be able to find it in here. And if we have that, then we're going to store it in our buffer table in field 1. Well, the rest works the same. You can set up also other fields if you want to. If you need, for example, something custom, we also have custom fields. But if you want to use more logic field, you can do that. So based on the field name and on the webshop field, we are downloading for inbound this information. What do we have more? So this is basically the simplest version. We have a type is default, which is means what the webshop field is, we are going to use to store in that table. So you have a field, you have a webshop field, and then if it matches well, in this case, the XML, then we are just going to put that information in there. We also have a validate field. That means we just validate the field and apply the logic behind that field. In this case, we are checking we are checking if the order is existing, yes or no. We also have multiple types, but I show you and I'll show you later. But basically, it means, for example, if you want to create a new customer, this is not a customer, but I will show you that for orders later on. You can select a certain NO series if you want to. We have a field value, which is a bit more advanced. But for example, if you have an entity ID and you have stored it somewhere else too, you can look that up. You can fill in a table relation. You can say, well, it should match this particular field in that table. And if we have a hit, then we're gonna write that particular field. We're gonna write that down, but I will show you that a bit later. We also have conversion templates. You can add conversion templates. So for example, if we download something and you say, well, for my for example, payment methods, we retrieve a code from Magento via the API, but you say, well, I use different codes in BC, then you can just add a conversion template in here, and that basically converts the web shop value into a BC value. And yeah, this can be anything. As you can see, if we download external video in this particular conversion template, we're gonna change that into video. All right. Yeah. You can also have a default value. If you don't, for example, as you can see in here, we have a sales channel. We can't get that from the XML, but we know the sales channel, if we download it in this job dashboard for this sales channel, it should automatically be this sales channel. So that's how you can set that up. Yeah, the same works for for other root elements, for example, items or billing address, which is all in the XML. All right, then this is updating our buffer table based on different things. Well, I can show you that for a bit what we're doing here, but in here we download additional data. And for example, in this case, we are downloading for the custom extension some extra fields, but that will enrich our current entry in our webshop order table. Not change it. All right, so this one and this one will convert the webshop order to a sales order if it meets this criteria. And what we basically do is, well, you probably recognize the fields. Yeah, we're gonna store it in table 36 for the header information. And as you can see in here, we have NO series 88. In this case, it listens to the Tinx setup. But you could also have a different NO series in here if you want to. Yeah. So what we do in here, let me see. So if you want to add more tables, so you are saying, well, I want from that particular JSON, I want to store to this specific sales order I just created. I also want to store other information, in this case, for example, to table 37, which are the line items. You can link those tables together. So basically what we're saying is, well, the document type should be the same, which is in this case an order, and the document number should be the same. So this is linked to the root table, and it will add the information to this root table, only linked to the sales lines of that particular document number we just created. So if you want to add more tables to your message, then you have to link it if you want to, if you want to apply it to that same order we just created in this case. Again, also we have here the root elements. This is a bit more advanced. This is based on a particular table. We are gonna store that information we already downloaded in table 36. So as you can see in here, copy fields, we are putting a metadata key in this field, in the sales header, which is our own field in this case. But that basically means we aren't reliant on this particular XML. We can also transfer information we already download, or you have already in BC tables somewhere. We can link that, and yeah, you can just transfer that from table to table, those fields. All right. Yes, then we have outbound. Works sort of the same, only slightly different. We also have our web services in here. And again, we have this %1 in here. We don't do it via the card, determine this %1, but in here we have the REST parameters where we can determine the %1. In this case, is the customer ID. That's just a comment. So, but that's helpful because then we know that this is the webshop customer ID we want to have in in the percentage parameter. Let me see, just to show you that it's converted. So that's this number for this case, in this case. Yeah, for outbound, we will store the information, well, not store, but if there is something on modify, for example, if a record is changed, you have a customer and you want to trigger a change based on all the, I don't know, if you change the name of the customer or something, the billing address of the customer, it will be queued in our record queue. So as you can see, in here, it's a sandbox, so it's on hold, but it will be stored in the record queue so it doesn't get lost in translation. If, for example, if Magento is down, don't worry, we still have the information available in the record queue ready to be sent out to Magento, so it isn't lost. But yeah, basically the same in here for sending out information. Yeah, but the same applies in here. You can select different fields you want to parse in the JSON. In this case, we are going to determine all the fields and the webshop fields in here. It should match, of course, what Magento wants to receive it. You can check Swagger for that if you want to set it up yourself. But basically, for example, they want to receive the email as a webshop field email. So this will be parsed in the JSON. And based on that particular customer, it will show the email which is stored in there, etc., etc. Yes, so that's basically it regarding for the mapping. Yeah, we have post, put, and delete for Magento. And we have an option to put records in the, well, in this case, in the record queue for onModify, but we also have an onInsert function. That means if you have want to trigger only if a new record is added to a table, we have the onInsert functionality, and we have the onDelete functionality. If you, for example, want to delete a customer, then we can also send out a delete request, for example, to Magento. That information is stored in our buffer table somewhere, and then we can use that information to delete the customer in Magento. All right. I don't know if you have any questions about the mapping, but feel free to ask. All right. Yeah, great. In setup e-commerce integration, I will show you that for a bit because I mentioned that before. We do have some options also available. For example, you can determine if you have only one sales channel, for example, you can also set that up in our dashboard. For example, web order number, so the number series will be set in here. But that's an option. You can say to the mapping, I want to use the setup, the e-commerce setup, or I want to determine that in the mapping itself. It depends how you want to set it up. And in here, we also have some other functionality. For example, if you are publishing a product, in this case, you see it in here, but we also have it stored in here. The same applies for customers. If you want to publish it to the web shop, then for products, we can automatically assign the web extension, for example, that it should be simple. But some of our clients want, all right, send it to Magento, but we want to enrich it in Magento. Then you can say, well, the first thing we do is set up the status to disabled. So if I publish it, it will set up the web extension status disabled automatically. So here you can tweak some configuration. So yeah, this is also a bit more advanced, but you can use that. Also interesting is maybe that based on certain criteria, for example, country and a website and region and stuff like that, we can automatically assign a customer template. If we download a customer and it matches the criteria to create a customer itself, like I showed you in the mapping, based on the region and stuff like that, we can also assign a particular customer template, where you can determine, for example, the posting groups and stuff like that. So you don't have to do that in the mapping per se, or you want to add dimensions also to the customer template. All right, I have to wrap it up a bit because I'm seeing I'm running out of time. So no questions. All right, then I will show you a bit more regarding B2B pricing. So let me show you that for a particular customer. Yeah, so we also developed some Magento extensions, which you can also download. What we do in here is we support with this Magento extension, because Magento doesn't support that natively. We support the BC pricing structure. So for example, the combination between item group and a customer group, or an item group and a customer, etc., that's all supported. Here we can set it up. Well, it says a bit, it seems a bit much, but basically what we do is enable sales price, enable sales line discount, and there is more settings, but let's just jump into where we store that information, for example, for this customer. Yeah, so as you can see in here, we transferred some data from Magento regarding sales discounts. We store that in here. And basically what it does, it mimics the pricing of BC and show that to the Magento customer. And of course, not only show it, but also determines the pricing logic. So if a customer checks out, it would be the same price as would be if you create manual sales order in Business Central for that particular customer. We also have the My Account module. Yep. In here, we can make OAuth connections to Business Central. And based on the customer number, we are going to retrieve all the information. For example, what we do if we send out customers, we are going to store the Business Central customer number. So only if you have, for example, one order for that customer in Magento, what we do in here is we are going to make a call to Business Central and show all the Business Central orders for that particular customer. So for example, for this demo customer, we have sales orders, invoices, and back orders. And for example, in sales orders, what they can do is we can set up that they can download a PDF. This will be generated in Business Central, but it will show the PDF as if you were printing it from Business Central. And we also have the option to reorder the items which are already in, which are in here. So if we click in reorder, we will make also a call to Business Central, check if the item is existing in Magento, and then it will add it to the shopping cart. We've made it easy. Well, we tried to make it easy, actually. We have some default options for you, which are sales orders. You basically only have to say that it should be enabled. We have some place orders as a demo, but you can add more fields if you want to. We made some custom API pages, but you can say to Magento what kind of fields you want to show. And if you want to display the lines and what the header of that lines or the text of that lines should be, also which fields should be in here. Well, all these kinds of things, if they should be able to download the PDF, if they should be able to reorder. And we've done it for sales invoices, shipments, credit memos, and returns. And if you want to create your own custom API pages, we also have that covered. We added some custom options, so you can add your own information, your own custom API page in here. And then it works a bit the same. You will say, okay, what is the name of that particular API page? And then what kind of fields you want to display. And based on, on what it should sort. So if we show this custom API page, then it will show the fields which we are retrieving from Business Central. Yeah, I don't know. Are there any questions about the B2B pricing and discounts extension or the customer portal extension? Feel free to ask. This is also the end of my presentation. So if you have any questions, then let me know.
Thank you, Casper. I don't see any questions at the moment.
All right. Then thank you for listening, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks a lot for the presentation. I'm going to close the call. You'll all be sent a recording afterwards. Please enter your feedback. If you want to know more or you want some help in proposing this solution to your customer base through demos or other means, just reach out to sales@idyn.nl or directly to Tinx, sales@tinxit.nl. I'll close the call for now. Thanks for joining and have a lovely sunny afternoon. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.